The next few days, I'm following in the footsteps of one of the most controversial shipwreck survival stories in Australia's history to see what they were faced with for my own survival challenge. Yes. Look at the size of that thing. That is the star of the show. Quite tragically, the majority of them died out here, but a select few managed to survive. I want to learn how and attempt to unravel the facts from the fiction.
You're going to love Eliza Fraser.
This is the exact location where that crazy story begins. So, the year is 1836. A large wooden ship by the name of the Stirling Castle is making its way up the east coast of Australia when tragedy strikes. It runs into an unmarked reef and the boat is completely broken apart. The 18 remaining survivors do their best to scramble on board two small little wooden boats. They jump on, hanging on for dear life, and then they begin their journey bobbing around the ocean until a storm washes them into this beach here, exactly at that point there. By this time, they have exhausted all of their food, all of their water rations. They are starving, pretty well knocking on death's door. They decide that their only chance at survival is trying to get a couple of 100 kilometers down to the south, but with the ocean like this, they decide they've got to try and walk. And guys, I'm here to follow in their footsteps, share this crazy story, all the twists and turns of it, and go on sort of my own survival challenge. So I'm gonna be doing my best to put myself in similar situations they were in, find what options they had for food, water, and shelter, these type of things. Now, it wasn't long until they soon find out that they're not alone out here. I'll tell you this story as we go, guys. It's one hell of a crazy one. Now, a lot has changed on the island since the shipwreck, but I'll be doing my best to look through the eyes of an 1830s shipwreck survivor. So these pools of water are all salt water, so no good to drink, but they could be home to a source of food like crabs or any shellfish. So normally in most shipwreck survivors, the first thing they find for food is shellfish in rock pools. Let's see if it works for us. Now, shellfish like that could provide a great meal or even some nice bait for fishing. So we'll be keeping our eyes peeled for something like that. A couple of the island's most famous residents, but well, they do look like a friendly puppy dog. They certainly are not that. These are a wild dingo, and you do just sort of have to keep your wits around you, because there has been some pretty crazy cases where they've bitten and even have killed people when they've bitten them in the wrong place. So they're not a ferocious lion, but they're also not a friendly puppy dog. They're probably somewhere in between. For now, while the tide is out nice and low, I really want to get some miles under the belt and start moving. Hang on a sec, it looks like there's a cave of some sort in the rock here. If you really were keen to get out of the rain or the wind spray, I suppose you could go and get pretty cozy in there, but our whole objective is we're trying to get out of here. We're trying to get to the south, so we don't really want to set up camp and hide in here. Oh, there's a beautiful bright blue kingfisher just sat up the top there, and they are experts at catching little fish in these rock pools. Generally, if you see a kingfisher, there'll be some smaller fish around. Let's go have a look down here. Seen a couple of crabs in here, and there's a few smaller fish, but nothing quite worth our time yet. I wonder what's killed this guy, but this is a dead bird called a cormorant or a shag here in Australia, and they are amazingly skilled at hunting fish underwater. He's a bit too rotten for me to even think about eating, but I'm not quite sure what's happened to this guy, but we'll let him rest in peace. Wow, this is the open exposed side. Now some of these waves crashing in, if they hit a little wooden lifeboat, man, it's all over. There's some force in them. Let's keep moving. So there is a number of survivors of this story, but the two main characters which I'm going to be speaking about and really steal the headlines of this story is a bloke by the name of James Fraser. He was actually the captain of the vessel, and his wife, Eliza Fraser. And for a number of years, these two were portrayed as heroes, so much so that this island, one of the most prized, most beautiful islands in all of Australia, actually was named after this couple. But in recent years, the truth of what really happened throughout this ordeal has really come out, so much so that this island has now had its name changed from Fraser Island to Gari Island, which is the native Aboriginal name for this place. It'll all make sense as this story plays out, but they're the two characters that this story really focuses on. Oh, this is really cool. Now this, I believe, is a pig face. See, there's two pig faces here. One is edible. And this has a beautiful little fruit on it that you can eat, but it's also got these leaves, which you can just eat them like that. They're a little bit salty from all the salt thing, but check out all that moisture in there. See that? Well, they're actually a bit bitter, but it's edible, and it's kind of these little things that you'll be looking to pick up the whole way down to keep you alive. Well, it seems like we've just been walking over grassy knolls to the trained Aboriginal eye back in the day. This is basically a supermarket. There is all sorts of bush tucker here. There's this one here that looks like a dingo den, actually. I just thought I may have stumbled across a dingo den that I didn't want to spook them, but this one here is the pig face. And then you've got this beach bean, and the most appealing part of it obviously looks like the bean itself, but if I went ahead and ate this, it would just about kill me, as you regular viewers would know. But the Aboriginal people, they'd learned a technique which involved washing it and then crushing it down and then soaking it and then giving it to your least favorite son to test it out, and then redoing that until it wasn't poisonous, and then you were able to eat it. I always wonder how many people died along the process until they really fine-tuned that recipe. They could walk through here and feast for days on all different types of bush tucker. There's some things I'm learning, but there's a lot I don't know, so I'm gonna try and get down and catch a decent fish or something like that. These actually taste like snow peas. I am hoping to catch something a little bit more substantial though. It looked like there was a little cave underneath here. Let's go check it out. I don't want to go poking around in here too much for a couple of different reasons. We've actually found skeletal remains of like burial sites in caves like this, and I just don't want to go stumbling across any artifacts. You know, it's not really my story to tell in here, so I'm gonna head back out and leave that place be. So it didn't take long for our shipwreck survivors to bump into the local people here, the local Aboriginal people that have been living on the island for thousands of years, and I reckon this would have been a prime spot for them. A bit of a dead giveaway out the front is this shell midden site, all these pippy shells. You can just picture it, can't you? A little campfire burning in behind me here, getting out of the wind or the sun and having a feed of pippies. So on their walk south, the castaways bumped into numerous groups of Aboriginal people, and they began to trade with them. Some was voluntary trading and others not so voluntary trading. But they were exchanging things like their clothes, their belts, their knives, their axes, anything useful like that for food with the Aboriginal people. The Aboriginals were obviously experts at gathering food and bush tucker, and our castaways had no idea what they were doing. This helped keep them alive initially, but it meant they ended up with literally no clothes left on them. Everything they had on them had been taken, and they continued their walk south. And that's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna get walking south. I'm heading down onto the beach now, and behind these sand dunes, man, it's super windy, but I reckon this might be my best chance to get some decent food. Let's get into it. Hey mate, you having any luck with the fishing? You're just hunting kind of along the sandbanks here at low tide to see, I reckon, if there's anything's been washed in by the tide that he can scavenge. It's a beautiful looking animal, isn't it? Now, I reckon the best tactic when trying to look for what food sources are available is you gotta see what the locals are doing. And that can mean either the local birds. So there's actually an eagle down here that is feeding on the high tide line. He's got a really big fish. So I'm wondering whether that fish just washed in with the waves. It looks like it's even too big for him to fly away with it. And I've noticed that the dingoes also are walking along the high tide line. I think they'd be doing the same, just seeing if anything washes in on the tide. So that's where I'm going to be walking as I head south. And the other local people in this case are the Aboriginal people. Remember, we found that shell midden site of all of those pippies. That's probably a good indicator that they are the most reliable food source here. So I'm gonna have a bit of a dig around. I'll show you how I try and get them in the shallows, and fingers crossed we get lucky. So those little pippies are buried just beneath the sand in this intertidal zone. So the best tactic is to come out, plant your feet on the ground, and when that tide is going back out, just rotate your feet side to side. And that'll basically dig a hole, and hopefully you feel with your toes a nice pippy. Doesn't take long and you get a good feed of pippies. There we go. But you got to be quick to grab them, because if you don't get them, they will suck themselves back under the sand by the time that next wave comes up. Now these pippies are actually fantastic bait to catch a bigger fish, but no way I'm wasting these. They're actually such a good meal as well. So I'm gonna save these to eat. There is a crazy animal that lives underneath the sand here. It looks like something out of another planet, and it is a fantastic bait. So I'm gonna crack one of these pippies open, use the pippy as bait to catch this crazy animal, which is even better bait, and then hopefully use that animal to catch a fish. That's the plan. Let's see how we go. So these are beach worms. They're a crazy looking animal, aren't they? And as the wave washes back out, it washes the scent of the pippy down, and they stick their head up looking for a feed. Let's see if we can catch one of them. Look at them all. The technique is you got to go in nice and slow and try and pinch them down below their head, but it's a bit of a battle with the tide washing in, and it'll quickly ruin your chance. Or if you go too quick, the worms will just shoot straight back down their hole. So you've got to slowly increase the pressure of your pinch in hope you can surprise him, and then hang on and pull him out. Yes, 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 yes. Holy moly, look at the size of this thing. Oh, it just keeps coming. Wow, look at that. That is crazy. That is a giant beach worm. And that is going to be our bait to catch something bigger. Yes. Look at the size of this thing. These are the best bait going. Check him out. Yes, 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 look at this. Look at this beauty. Oh, it's a giant beach worm, check that out. This bloke's come sniffing around for my bait. This is my bait, I'll work hard for it, all right? Go get your own. I'm gonna use that hand line with that little bit of bait, cast out here, and hopefully we can catch a fish, which would just be an amazing meal for us. It is pretty rough out here at the moment, but I'm hoping this turbulent surf here is stirring up things like worms or little shellfish, and there's some fish feeding there. That's the theory. Let's see how we go. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Yes, 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 I've got something. Come on, come on, come on. Got something on here. What have we got? What have we got? Whew. Got a little bit of a go about him. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yes. Yes, you beauty. Yes. Check that out. We got a fish, guys. Now this is a swallowtail dart. And of course, in a real survival situation, that would absolutely be a nice meal. But unfortunately, they've now got a legal limit on them here in Australia. So this guy isn't quite legal, but that's a good sign. Hopefully there is a bigger one out there for us. But I'm gonna have to release this guy. All right, that is a super good sign. Let's try catch a bigger one. So at the moment, there's a couple of good things happening for this fishing spot. The tide is dropping out here. So hopefully any little worms and stuff are all getting washed out this gutter. And I'm hoping there's some bigger fish there waiting for it to be washed out. Also, the surf is churning up the bottom and hopefully churning up worms and that type of thing as well. So fingers crossed there's some hungry fish there, and my worm gets smashed by one of them. Yes, yes, yes. Come on, mate, take it. Yes. Fish on. Fish on, fish on, fish on. Doesn't feel very big, but it's a fish. What have we got? What have we got? Come on up. Oh yes, a new species. Once again, not the biggest fish in the world, but that is a tar wine brim. Look at the, something had a bite at him on the way in. Of course, in a survival situation, there's a nice little meal on that, but I'm gonna get him back in the water released. Got a new species, a little butter brim. Those few little fish would have been a good option for our castaways, but no go for me, so I'm gonna have to keep looking for a decent feed. Guys, I just wanted to give you a little sneak peek behind the scenes of the filming of this episode. So the story we're sharing, it spans for a couple of months and a couple of 100 kilometers. So in order to best tell it and best film it, this is the setup I've gone with. So in the back of the car, I've got the Bluetti Elite 200 V2. At the moment, Bluetti are running their end of financial year sale with massive savings, combined with, if you use the QR code on screen right now, or the link in our description, you're gonna get a further discount on that massive saving. Check this out, it's super simple. At the moment, I'm getting a bit of extra charge into my drone. I'm charging the GoPros. I've got my laptop on charge, and this Bluetti device is allowing me to be out here fully powered and film for as long as it takes. When it comes time to recharge, it's super simple, guys. I can just plug this straight into the vehicle while it's driving. I can hook in a solar panel, or you can charge it from your wall plug at home. This device will allow you to revolutionize your camping experience with whatever your power needs are. So you can fire up your coffee machine in the morning, you can have Starlink going to watch the footy, you can have a TV to watch Netflix, you can run fridge freezers, your wife can run her hairdryer, kids can run their iPads non-stop. I don't approve of that, but as long as they're watching Back to Basics. This little device, I reckon, is pretty much a must-have for anyone that loves the outdoors, camping. Just really allows you a whole different experience while you're out here. I've been using this one for a couple of months now, and guys, it hasn't missed a beat. So it's 2,600 watts of power. It comes with a 5-year warranty, which is massive, and I reckon it's gonna last for 17 years of regular use, which is just massive that you can put that amount of trust in a device like this. And how this whole setup works, guys, if you use our link or the QR code, we get a little bit of a kickback. Everyone's a winner. I'm sure you guys will find it just as useful as I have. Cheers. There's a tiny little inlet here and the water feels nice and cold. I'm hoping this is a little freshwater stream. And this actually looks nice and clean. Let's give this a taste. That's beautiful fresh water. So fortunately for our castaways, the whole length of this beach, there's creeks just like this that come out with fresh water. So water, which is normally your biggest concern, is just not an issue on this walk down the coast. At the base of the rainbow, there is a little bit of gold. These guys are so sweet. Nature's lolly. Delicious. And what the Aboriginal people used to do, they used to just dip them straight in water to make like a cordial type of drink. I'm not sure how much sustenance you get out of licking it, but man, it tastes good. There's another little freshwater creek that just runs, must be from a spring or something up there. Once again, this is beautiful and cool. I'm just gonna follow it up. What an absolute gift, hey, to have fresh water just coming out of the ground like this. No wonder the local Aboriginal people named this paradise, or Gari in local language. That one just tasted a little bit not so good because of all this rotting and decomposing leaves. I'm gonna try and find a better freshwater stream. On their walk down the coast, they come across some pretty amazing landscapes. These sandstone colored cliffs behind me here don't sound like they've changed too much from the account I read in the book. Now, up until this point, the castaways had a great fear of the Aboriginal people. Up until this point of the island, their interactions hadn't been great. They'd managed to trade some clothing for some fish, but they also felt like they'd been robbed and beaten and treated poorly on a number of occasions. But much to their surprise, they met some local Aboriginal people here, and rather than getting robbed, the Aboriginal people started to show them a level of sympathy, took them in, gave them food and water. In order to split the load, they split the surviving castaways across different groups of Aboriginal people. But this is where Eliza Fraser's stories start to get a little bit blurred. So she describes how the Aboriginal women covered her in mud as a form of torture and humiliated her. Eliza Fraser then goes on to describe how she's been captured and that she's basically a slave to the Aboriginal people, and every day she needs to pick up firewood and start fires and help out, look after the babies. But the reality is, trying to live off the land back in the day there, it was hard. Every day people needed to collect firewood, food, water, hunt and gather. So the way I interpret it is she was just sort of taken in as part of the clan, and that was hard work. We've still got plenty of miles to go till there's any form of rescue, so we better get walking. This is the biggest freshwater creek we have seen so far. Look at it running out here. Let's poke our head up here for a bit of a look. Oh yeah, it's nice and cold. It's definitely fresh water. Oh, now I find this quite interesting. So this here, this is a beach hibiscus tree, and it's the only one I've seen anywhere on the island. And I reckon it would have been planted here quite purposefully by the Aboriginal people back in the day. If you guys have seen my episodes before, chances are you would have seen me use this beach hibiscus tree. It's, I reckon, one of the best for friction fire. It's also, the bark makes great strapping and great lashing, and it's also great for spears as well. So I reckon this has been planted here quite deliberately, right next to the best water source on this whole coastline. Pretty cool, eh? Wow, what a little paradise this creek is. It's actually quite nice and cool. running fresh water, and it's just crystal clear. So to be honest, I've been feeling a little bit twisted and sick in the guts after drinking some of that previous water. I reckon like a bigger stream like this that's running quicker, I reckon this might be a better bet. Man, out of all the islands they could have washed in on, they got damn lucky washing in on here. Having a freshwater source like this is so rare on the east coast of Australia. Amazing. Well, the Stirling Castle, the shipwreck story I'm retelling, was the first shipwreck recorded here. There's since been a number of others, and this is probably the most famous and most visited one today. Woohoo! This is the Mahino, and she lived a very interesting life. Once upon a time, she was the hospital boat that helped people out at Gallipoli, probably the most famous war that Australia was involved in. And this old girl was there saving people's lives. She was later decommissioned and she was getting towed up the coast here when a cyclone hit her. She snapped her tow line, ended up on the beach. A few of the old timers have got stories that they used to be able to swim on her and actually pull crayfish out. Heaps and heaps of crayfish used to aggregate there. I thought it was an old wives' tale until I've actually seen some photos of it. But the boat must have drifted in a little bit further because I can't imagine there being any crayfish in there at the moment. Well, we'll keep on walking, eh? Got an incredible full moon rising out there behind me. Now, our castaways did actually enjoy walking through the night, but I think it's probably about time for me to find somewhere to camp. You can now only camp in certain areas, and unfortunately, if I made a video camping right here, I'd end up with thousands of dollars in fines, which I just can't afford. So I'll see you guys bright and early in the morning to continue this adventure. So the Aboriginal people that lived on this island quite successfully, they were rather nomadic, meaning that they would move all over the island depending on the seasons, the time of the year, and also the weather. And if we poke our head out here today, it is howling, man. There's huge waves crashing on the beach, making it near impossible to catch any fish out this side. So what I reckon the Aboriginal people would have done on a day like today, they would have gone this way. They would have headed inland, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. Here is a pandanus that has fallen to the ground here. And there's a few different edible parts of this. This, you can basically chew this. It's like kind of a sweet, fruity type of thing. There is also a nut inside here, which takes a hell of a lot of effort to crack open, but it's a good one to know about. It's quite nice, actually. The flavor is similar to like a mango crossed with a pawpaw. That the landscape has really transitioned into this great big woodlands or a rainforest. Check out the size of this tree here. Man, this absolutely massive. So the Aboriginal people used barks from trees like this to build some amazing things like canoes, and some of the scars on the trees can still be seen today where they've managed to take sections of the bark. They also used it for things like roofings of their huts, but it is actually amazingly waterproof. We've just arrived at a place you can see out here behind me. It's actually one of the most beautiful places I have ever seen. I'm just waiting for that sun to come out, and then it's time to jump in for a swim. Eliza's story of what happened through this time period was constantly changing and became more exaggerated and unbelievable with every retelling.
I could do nothing. As day after day, I watched the savages consume the crew, one after another.
Did they boil them first, miss?
Yes, I'm afraid so. First, my poor husband, Captain Fraser.
But one thing we do know for certain is that somewhere along the lines, Captain James Fraser died. Initial reports from Eliza said that he had been speared in the chest over a disagreement with the local people about some firewood and some chores.
Dare you, sir? I'm a British sea captain. I'm damned if I'll be ordered about by a savage.
And that a period of time later, like a week or so, he then died because of that injury getting infected. But as the stories became more embellished, you know, this turned into a gruesome murder. But whatever the reason for his death, this left Eliza Fraser without her husband and alone with these Aboriginal people, because all of the survivors had been split up amongst the groups. And this, for her, was an incredibly traumatic time. It's a pretty sort of thick forest here, but trying to get my way down to the water's edge. Oh yes, coming down the side of the mountain here, and it looks like these are mangroves out the back here, and I'm going to go and see if I can catch something substantial. I would love to get a giant mud crab or a decent feed of fish. Let's go. These sandflies are out of control in here. So this is a trick the Aboriginal people used to use just to rub mud all over their skin to prevent the sandflies and the mosquitoes from biting them. And this is what I reckon the Aboriginal ladies were doing to Eliza Fraser to look after her. Although she interpreted it as them ridiculing her, torturing her and bullying her. But this is what I reckon they were doing. It does help. Now as we're walking through here, we're looking for a mud crab, and there's a couple of different ways we can find them. The first option is in a big hole that they've dug. I reckon this is where the bigger males kind of hang out, because they actually will fight to the death over the best hole. So generally the alpha, the biggest, will have the best hole. But another way you can find them is when the tide just kind of drops out and almost beats them, they just play hide and seek. And they will just lie in the mud, kind of covering themselves and wait for the tide to come in. That way they're very well camouflaged, but we're every chance of finding one just like that in amongst the mud here. It's like a game of hide and seek. We've probably got an hour to play this before the tide's going to be too high. This little creek is running almost like blood orange or blood red. That's all the tannin and tea leaves further up that changes that color of the water. It's actually quite clear through that tinted orange. So if we see a mud crab, we should be able to get him. Little bubbles coming up from here, isn't there? Holy shit. Check this out, guys. Holy shit. There is a giant mud crab here. I'm not quite sure how to get him. Oh yes! Yes, yes, yes! What a beauty! I just saw that this little pool was, I need to get a better grab on him. Oh. Oh, he's almost got me. He's flexible, this bloke. Yes! That makes walking around the mangroves all worthwhile. I just saw this pool was a little bit disturbed and there was some air bubbles coming out. As soon as I poked in there, those claws come up and snap. Make no mistake, guys, this is going to be a beautiful dinner. Yum, yum. Woohoo! Yes! Eventually the castaways, accompanied by their Aboriginal host, made it to this point here. They were now overlooking body of water and then mainland Australia. In order for them to be rescued, they needed to get to the other side. And after waiting for a couple of days, a couple of the castaways became impatient and decided they could swim themselves, 2 of them. Anyway, they didn't make it, unfortunately, so close that they drowned there. Actually, the castaways all sort of found a range of different ways to die along the way. A couple other drowned. There was a couple of them that were actually left on a small isolated island after a disagreement with the Aboriginal people. One actually burnt to death after the hut he was sleeping in managed to light on fire throughout the night. Of course, they died of exhaustion, dehydration, all sorts of things. But Eliza Fraser waited for a canoe and a lift across to the other side, across to mainland Australia. Okay, it is now 9:49 p.m. and I finally found somewhere we're allowed to have a fire. Man, I love Australia, but some of the rules are, yeah, they're a little bit frustrating at times. But anyway, we can have a fire here. Thankfully, the guys, when they abandoned ship. They had a flint. And if you haven't seen one of these work before, you strike this on the back of your knife and you're gonna get a spark. Put that on a dry little bit of coconut husk or dry grass and that should go up. Tonight we are gonna have this beautiful big mud crab, and check out the size of this this big claw here. And then he normally feeds on things like this, but this is gonna be our entree, the little pippies, and then the big mud crab for our main. Once that fire burns down to a nice coal base, we'll just put these straight on top. The rain is making it pretty tricky tonight, but I think it's time for dinner. So these pippies have just kind of popped open pretty nicely, really. They look a little bit charcoal, but let's try them out. That's pretty good. Chews through the sand, but the rest is pretty good. But that is the star of the show. That is the main course. Beautiful big mud crab. No, man, that was lucky. He landed sunny side up, but that is the best meal you can get on this entire island, as far as I'm concerned. Absolute beauty. Man, that rain is relentless tonight, but I'm not leaving till I've finished my crab. The story's not over, guys. I'll see you guys bright and early in the morning. We've got to get rescued. The story's not over. We'll see you then. Now, time for the rescue. I want to introduce to you probably my most favourite character in this entire story, a bloke by the name of John Graham. He was serving time in jail for a number of different charges, but he managed to escape the Moreton Island jail and went rogue. Lived with the Aboriginal people up and down the coast and on this island for a number of years. He could speak the language, he knew the culture and the practices. And this John Graham character, he caught wind that Eliza Fraser was being either hosted or held captive by the Aboriginal people, depending how you want to look at it. He saw this as an opportunity for a pardon of himself. So in the middle of the night, he managed to come and save Eliza Fraser from the Aboriginals and then took her back to where a rescue party was looking for her already. For his efforts, did actually get a pardon and was then free to go, no longer living as a prisoner. The story had now got out about Eliza Fraser's amazing story of survival and escaping the cannibals and the savages and that whole storyline. By the time she got back to Sydney, there was a large sum of money there waiting for her. And then every time she retold this story or wrote another book about the ordeal, the story became more and more exaggerated, and to the point where I think it was more sort of fiction than fact. She starts talking about how these savages had blue tufts of hair on their shoulders, and she ended up making a lot of money for it. Eliza Fraser becomes somewhat of a hero to the white European world. The island is named after her. She's got monuments everywhere. She wrote books. There's movies dedicated to her.
You're going to love Eliza Fraser.
But unfortunately, the real losers out of this story back in the day were the Aboriginal people who'd been portrayed as savages and beasts, and unfortunately it didn't end well with them. There was a number of massacres in this area where they forcibly removed the Aboriginal people. It wasn't long before there was no Aboriginal people living how they had for thousands of years on this island. And well, the rest is history, guys. You sort of know how it all plays out from there. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, guys, and if you did like it, there's plenty more just like this on our channel in the survival episodes with Strick playlist. Thanks a lot for watching, really appreciate the support. Cheers.